Hey everyone, and welcome back. You already know what time it is. We're back for another recap of Witch Atelier. This week it's episode 10. This episode was really good and really impressed me in a lot of ways. It wasn't like as flashy as something like episode 5, for example, but I think a lot of the decisions that the staff made with regards to some of the stuff that they were that this particular span of chapters was being adapted addresses was a really good choice. So without further ado, we're just gonna get right into it because there's a lot to talk about, in my opinion. So, yeah, let's go. Okay, so we begin right where we left off again, with Tartah asking Qifrey his question or saying that he wants to ask him a question. And my favorite part about this scene, both in the manga and in the anime, is that when Tartah says this, Qifrey gets this really dark, overcast look over his face. And you see that you're kind of like, what are you planning to do to this child? Like, leave him alone. Like, we already know you do elder abuse. We don't need you abusing this kid who just wants to know if something's going on with his grandfather. But that all kind of subsides when he like reels it in and then acts very excited about Tarta's question. He's like, oh my gosh, like, is it the question about magic? Like, you can ask me anything about magic. Like, I'm so excited. Yeah, what's your question? What's your question? And he's all sparkly and stuff, and Tarta's just like, whoa, like, that's a lot. I don't even know if I can ask him this question when he's like this. This just doesn't seem like the right time or place for this. And that's happening, but then the nurse or doctor comes to get them and is like, okay, we've got Coco settled, so you guys can come in to see her. So they're taken inside the hospital essentially, and she mentions that Coco has a cold from her lack of rest, essentially, but that she should be fine with proper like rest and eating and all that stuff, all that good stuff that you do when you're sick. And then Qifrey is always the one getting roasted, or something's always happening to him every episode. Because she's like, yeah, I mean, the training you witches go through is like really harsh, but like as an adult in her life, someone needs to be watching her more carefully and like actually like be taking care of her needs. And Kiefer's like, oh dang, like yeah, she's right actually. And he's very sorry about it because he should have been keeping an eye on her. Like that's really his bad. He got so caught up with like the Brimhat stuff that he just lost track of really everything else that was important, essentially. So he does cast a spell that almost it almost functions as like a humidifier in a sense, where it kind of eases her breathing, but it also helps like cool off the room. Actually, I haven't had a humidifier in a while, so I don't know if it actually like helps cool off the room, but it basically does that. Like it puts water, like he puts water particles in the air to like help ease her condition essentially. And so Qifrey just kind of mentions like Coco's been withholding like a lot of stuff, like she just learned about witches recently. Like this is a lot for her, and that kind of clues Tartah into the fact that Coco is the outsider that everyone's been talking about. He's like, oh wait, so like that's her. Like she's the one that everyone's been yapping about for the past like however many weeks or days. And the Qifrey master manipulator, because he uses this like it's not like I say sob story because it is sad, but like he's using it as a sob story essentially to like prevent Tartha from asking this question, because he's just kind of like, yeah, actually, like if we could like hold off on that question until later, because like now's not a good time. And Tartha, being the nice boy that he is like, oh yeah, no, totally, I get it, like this is rough, and like she's been under a lot, and this probably isn't the time or place. And with that, Tartha kind of just leaves to go back home. But he does forget his hat, which causes an issue because, as we know, Tartha cannot fly because Tartha doesn't have the the training, or hasn't passed the test to be a witch or anything. So he has to take the ferry back to the Witch Island essentially. But in order to get on that ferry, you need to be able to like kind of prove you're a witch, and that's kind of with the hat. But he doesn't have it when he gets to the ferry. So the guy guarding the ferry I don't. He's not really the ferry man. He's just the guard of the ferry. He's just kind of like, yeah, no, you can't get on the ferry unless you can prove you're a witch. So you're gonna have to leave. And he basically chases Tartha off, and Tartha has to go running through the entire city to try and find his hat in the evening, because the sun's setting at this point and it's about to get dark. And we go back to the hospital essentially, with Qifrey talking to another doctor about how magic is useful, and Qifrey being like, no, doctors are like the real like useful ones, because like we can't like heal wounds or anything like that. And the doctor's like, yeah, that's true, but like it'd be really cool if we could use magic. And Qifrey is like, yeah, that would be something, that'd be pretty cool. And it was always really funny, or really not funny. It's kind of sad actually, because these are really two separate classes. But it always really is something to see a non-witch go, oh, it'd be really cool if we could use magic, or like, do you think I could be a witch one day? And then someone who is a witch and actually does feel kind of bad for them, or doesn't like the whole idea of keeping all this knowledge secret, then has to like lie to their face and be like, yeah, that would be really nice, or just like really try and play it off. because that secret can't get out. So they just can't do that. But essentially, that's happening when a man enters and says, "Oh my God, we need doctors, we need nurses, we need everybody because there's a fire over somewhere else in town and it's gotten out of control." And then he's like, he sees Qifrey's magic. He's like, "Oh my gosh, wait, there's magic in here. You're a witch. Come with me." And he like grabs Qifrey by the shoulders. He's like, you know, witches help people. Like that's what you do." And this is like another really kind of like interesting thing because while it is a two-class system in a way, the witches aren't exactly like, they are like at the top of the pecking order in a sense, but also the regular people more or less see them as tools a lot of the time. Like they're something other than the non-witches, where it's like, oh yeah, witches exist to like help people with their magic, and that's kind of like what they're there for. Like they're not like, it's not that they're not people. It's it's just that like, what is a witch that can help somebody or that isn't helping someone, right? Like that's pointless. So he's kind of like begging him and like trying to like obligate him into like helping. And Qifrey's just like, no, like wait, hold on, like I have like an apprentice here that I'm like trying to watch over, because she's like sick. And Coco at this point has woken up and is like, no, it's fine, like you can go, like I will be okay here. Just like head off with them and help deal with like the fire. And so Qifrey leaves, but like Coco was putting on a brave face the whole time. And she's like, I'm just like terrified of being alone because I mean she is again a like 12-year-old who is sick with the cold and is now left in a strange hospital by herself, with nobody she knows. So naturally she's very terrified to be left alone. However, at this point, we also get Tartah coming back to the hospital after dark, and he's able to sneak in once some of the other like doctors and people working in the hospital leave. Presumably go address the fire as well because they're like rushing. And he finds his hat in the room that Coco's in, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you! I can like finally go home." And he does hear her sleeping restlessly, like she's just like tossing and turning, making a lot of noises in her sleep. And he wakes her up because he's like, "Oh my gosh, like, are you good? Like, what's wrong?" And Coco sees him. She's like, "Oh wait, you're here? Like, that's kind of crazy." Then she starts to cough, and you know, Tarta is just really confused about where everyone is because he wasn't here for all the spiel about the fire. But then Coco kind of like tells him like, "Hey, yeah, no, there's a massive fire over there, so like everyone's not here." And Tarta's like, "Oh my gosh, like no one's here to like take care of you." So he then takes it upon himself to try and figure out a way to help Coco, specifically with tranquil leaf, because he knows that that will help kind of like ease her pain, ease her cough. So he goes to the medicine cabinet to look and see if he can find said medicinal herb. But the thing is that he pulls out this, and also I forgot to mention, that the instance where he finds his hat is the first time he kind of like see the world like through his eyes, so like all the colors kind of washed out, like because he has silver wash eyes. And so then he goes to pull the medicine from the medicine cabinet and look at that and see if he can find anything, but like nothing has a label, and we see things from his point of view again, and all these things look the same because of he cannot distinguish color or like anything else from something else. So he's basically just like, oh, like I can't actually help or do anything here. And that really stresses him out. That puts him in dismay because Coco's over here coughing. She's like not feeling well, and he can't do anything. And he does feel pretty distraught about not being able to help because he's like, oh my gosh, like she's like not doing well. And he goes to get her water, gets her the water, and then realizes, oh wait, I can use the vapor bubble to siphon the liquid out of this, siphon the water out, and then kind of like try and just like figure out which one of these is the thing I'm looking for, because tranquil leaf is used as a powder and then they add water like whatever to it and then it looks different. So he does that and he's able to rule out a lot of the options in the medicine cabinet. However, there are 3 options left that are still powder, which he cannot differentiate between because he can't see color. He can't like really tell the fine particles or anything from each other at that point. And I will say that like the decision to do things from his point of view multiple times in the span of this episode and the span of what I just described as well was such a great directing decision, because I love the manga. I love the manga a lot, but like obviously when you're told that Tarta has silver wash eyes, you're kind of like, okay, like what does that look like how does that impact him being a witch? But like now you can really see that, like especially in the dark specifically, it's very hard for him to see. Like his vision's very dark. Everything is like again black and white, essentially like silver, and it makes it very hard to differentiate between anything. So this is one of those instances where like an anime adaptation does a very good job of taking something that is mentioned in the manga and then portraying it in a way that is easier to understand for the audience, in the world where the audience can like look at it and be like, oh, that makes sense why that would be an issue. So props to again Bug Films for doing a great job there. But you know, again, like I was saying, Tartah very upset about this whole situation, and he's apologizing to Coco because like I shouldn't have promised that I to do something that I can't do because of the way I am, which is very sad because it's like that's just like, come on, like you're like it. I get it, it's sad, but Coco, who is also again still awake at this point, reminds him that magic is there to help you do what you cannot do. She convinces him to draw a spell, the Rockbreaker spell specifically. But she does catch a chill, so Tartah puts a blanket over her, and I'm like, he's just so kind. Like, I mean, you can't hate Tartah. Tartah is really one of the kindest characters in this entire series, in my opinion. And I really enjoy seeing him get ahead or like seeing him succeed because it just like is, it's really fulfilling to see him succeed. I don't know, and I feel like he's great disability rep as well because like he's a great kind of like look into the witches having their own. Stratified society within an already stratified society where people who have disabilities, particularly in their eyes, are just like basically looked down as like defects or like people that aren't worth teaching anything. And so Coco essentially draws the Rockbreaker spell, reverse engineers it in a way that it will take something that is in powdered form and then reconstruct it into the form of what it looked like before. To help Tartah basically be able to identify these plants because Tartah does know what these plants look like. He just can't tell by like color or anything like that. We do get there are some cuts here. There's like a cut panel I think of Coco explaining some signs and glyphs and like also calling magic and saying magic is very honest because like what you draw is what you get essentially with magic. And in a world or in a series that is focused on a society that is based on lies, I think the inclusion of calling magic honest specifically is really important, but I mean we don't get that here, unfortunately. But I mean it's fine. It's not really like I feel like they probably cut it because it's like it is an explanation again of like how these things work, and we've already been explained to that once more or less. But the first pass of the spell kind of produces a blob thing. It looks kind of like a plant, but like not really. It's really mostly a blob form, and Coco is embarrassed and is like, yeah, no, I can't do this. And then Tartah decides to take a look at it and is like, hey, wait, what if we add more like signs to it? To help like really image this object in 3D because right now it's missing information if we are doing it the way we're currently doing it. And Coco's like, oh yeah, that might work. Tartah is like, I'm sorry for like modifying your spell and whatnot, but Coco's like, no, but if like you modify it, then it becomes your spell, which is really sweet. Like I love the way these two support each other. I love the way all the kids support each other, but I really love the dynamic these two have as well, like specifically. And he finishes that spell and it works to perfection. You get this really beautiful scene of him holding the spell under the vial and having that plant materialize in his eyes and be like silver, like sparkly, like almost like a beacon in the darkness to him, and him being able to actually identify what it is, which is very helpful because none of the plants that were in the medicinal cabinet were Tranquil or the plant he was looking for. So good thing he didn't try to give any of those to Coco because it would not have ended the way he wanted to. So seeing that, he's like, okay, I'm gonna go to the storeroom essentially to try and like look for more, like see where I can find this plant basically. And he goes down there. He's like identifying all these plants. He's using the spell on all these plants, and he is just amazed to the point of tears that he's able to like essentially like walk through the world in a similar way to people who like have perfect vision do, where he's able to like actually identify things by using magic. And he does find the Tranquil Leaf. He's very happy about that, but when he finds the Tranquil Leaf, the doctor on duty finds him. And because obviously who leaves a hospital totally unattended, right? Like nobody's gonna do that. So he's like, okay, sorry. And she's like, yeah, no, we're going back to the room and we're treating your friend. So she treats Coco, and she mentions that like, yeah, the bottles aren't labeled because like we're trying to prevent people from stealing the bottles, because like different doses of medicine can like easily become poison essentially, and if they're mixed correctly or and stuff like that. So she's like, yeah, no, like we don't label this. That's not what we do here. But she does notice how knowledgeable he was about like the plants, because she's like, well, that's true, you identified the correct plant, so like are you like interested in medicine? And then she notices his hat and she's like, oh, actually you're a witch, which makes him and Coco smile because like this lady who doesn't know anything about Tartah, doesn't know anything about his eyes, focuses on the fact that he has a witch hat, the fact that he was using a spell, and it's kind of like, oh, actually you're a witch, so that makes sense that you don't know anything about medicine. Which yeah, I love that recognition that he gets there. Meanwhile, across the city, we have Qifrey finishing up with the fire, which I think that was slightly different in the manga as well, because in the manga I think there's like a scene of him handing some lady back her baby, but that doesn't happen here. But it's not really a major cut, to be honest. It's just like a slight difference, I feel like, in my opinion. And then he tries to leave, but old boy who enlisted him to help with the fire in the first place is like, no, like we need you to help with the cleanup, my boy. Like, where are you going? Um, and he's like, yeah, no, magic should make it super easy. Like, like you can do anything with that stuff. And then he walks off, and the other witches who showed up to help are like, we got this. Like, outsiders don't really understand that, like, how this works, which is like, that's who set that system up? You did. So they're like, yeah, you can go. We'll handle it here. And then Qifrey flies off and remarks that, like, yeah, magic isn't easy. And it's not that simple, because if it was, nobody would have to suffer. Like, everyone would be perfectly fine. Everyone would be okay. But he does find Qifrey. He does find Tartah and Coco sleeping quietly in the hospital room. Tartah is like in a chair, like leaned over onto Coco's bed, and Coco is just sleeping peacefully, calmly. He checks her fever; she seems to be fine, and then he covers Tartah with his own cloak, which is really sweet of him. Like, I mean, while it's very clear that he was contemplating what he might have to do to Tartah because Tartah was asking questions, I think it's also very clear that Qifrey would prefer not to do that to anyone if he didn't have to, or if he didn't feel like he had to. Especially because they're not brim hats. He's just like, okay, well, like, you're asking too many questions. But yeah, he does cover him with the cloak essentially, and that is that essentially there. In the morning, Tartah and Coco thank each other. They're like, oh my gosh, like, you help me, and he's like, no, you help me. And there is like a kind of change panel here, because like they do say that, like, oh my gosh, witches are amazing. Like they say that to each other. Whereas like in the manga, I think Tartah kind of calls Coco like awesome, or says that she's really cool about like her spell, and Coco's like, really, like my magic's all over the place, and she kind of like freaks out, but like that's him kind of like recognizing her. But like here they're kind of just like casually recognizing each other, which I did enjoy. And there's also like, I think, a cut panel of Qifrey and Nolnoa calling up to them from outside the hospital, saying that like, oh, we're here, it's time to go. And so they go to the dock so that Nolnoa and Tartah can go back to their island, and Qifrey and Coco can say goodbye. And Tartah's like, oh wait, my question, Qifrey, did you see anything about that flash of light? And this man, master gaslighter, just decides to play dumb and is like, light? At the same time Nolnoa does. Basically just hinting that he has no idea what Tartah's talking about. And Tartah's like, oh, okay, I guess, sure. But as he's walking off, Qifrey is just like staring him down. I'm like, oh man, like you dodged a bullet by him being able to play dumb. I'm not gonna lie to you. But yeah, that kind of all happens there, and they all go their separate ways. And as they're leaving, Tartah calls out to Coco and says that he's going to, carve her own pen, and then he's going to use his own magic to deliver it to her and cross the lake, essentially, once he does. And Coco's like, yeah, I can't wait for it. And the thing I love here is that Tartah's vision has been dark this entire episode, primarily because the episode takes place mostly at night. But when he looks at Coco and Qifrey as he's leaving the dock, his vision is very, like, bright. Like, you can, like, there's no color, obviously, but, like, it's bright when he's looking at them during the daytime, and I really like that. And again, it's really another level of like world building, in the sense that it's like, yeah, in the day his vision is super bright, which I'm sure makes it hard to see in different capacities as well. But I do think symbolically it's like almost him coming out of the darkness as well, so I did like that as well. Meanwhile, Qifrey and Coco go back to the Atelier, and Qifrey's like, yeah, we can work on like a countermeasure for your dreams if you want. And Coco's like, no, like I actually have like hope now, essentially, because she realized that drawing the signs in reverse on a spell can produce the opposite effect. So she's like, okay, like if I draw that forbidden spell backwards, like if we figure out what it was, then we can save my mom, like we can get her unpetrified. And then she's greeted by the others from the Atelier, and Agatha, because she can never be normal about anything, is standing off to the side, but she does give like a sigh of relief. Like we all saw that was a sigh of relief that Coco is okay, as Coco kind of like runs to her to like greet her, because again she's like, I'm not like the rest of you, and she's standing off to the side. But obviously the episode can't just end on a happy note. Well, I mean, it does end with like Coco running off to see Agatha, but like it ends, that's after the whole brim hat thing with Igwin talking to a brim hat who he calls the embodiment of forbidden magic, who says like, yeah, we have to like move faster than this, like we have to do more, so I'm gonna attack them during the test, because during the test the master is away, or like the master is like not able to protect their apprentice to the same capacity. So like when the test happens, I'm gonna be there, and I'm gonna mess some stuff up. And yeah, the episode kind of ends there as he's saying that as Coco's running to Agat, and like the whole group is like reunited again. So things are gonna happen in these last 3 episodes. We're hitting the Serpentback Cave next week, so that's very exciting. Again, this episode not as flashy as like something like episode 5, or even like I think was 6 or 7, the river. Either way, not as flashy, but a lot of the directing choices were really, really good. So I really love this episode, and I appreciated a lot of those decisions myself. Okay, and that concludes this week's recap. We are 3 episodes away from the end of season 1. I can't believe we've gotten this far in this anime adaptation for this series already, but it's been great. It's been a real nice ride. I really hope they announce season 2 soon. But yeah, I am excited to see where we end off. Excited to hear maybe about potential season 2 when that might happen. But otherwise, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next recap and in the next video. So thanks again for watching.